Fourth up is Amy James from Pate's Grammar School. Amy's favourite subjects are drama, English, art, history and religious education. Notice conspicuous absence of STEM subjects. Amy hopes to be an actress, professional singer or psychiatrist, and her 3 chosen words to describe herself are funny and weird. I'm not sure "and" is the optimal descriptive word, but it's still in there. Among other skills, Amy's a keen marksman, and apparently Amy's aim is amazing. She can shoot a 5p piece on a sling, which, should you ever be attacked by a 5p piece on a sling, is very useful. This afternoon, though, she's set her sights on a bigger prize, FameLab Academy. So get ready to fire both barrels for a fired-up Amy James.
Picture it, 1960s gangster London, filled with fame, fortune, and ran by the most infamous twins in British history, Ronnie and Reggie Kray. Their reign was jam-packed full of extortion, protection rackets, and rubbing shoulders with the rich and famous. They fronted as just being club owners, but as they were receiving more and more attention, especially from the American mafia, it was clear they had to up their game. They became London legends, were living the dream, and owned most of East London. But, as they say, all good things must come to an end, and their downfall came about due to Ron's paranoid schizophrenia. Schizophrenia is a mental illness that affects the 2 frontal lobes of the brain. It can cause severe hallucinations and delusions, which, coupled with paranoia, can be very dangerous to the patient's health. The disorder seems to be almost common in monozygotic twins, with one having the condition and the other seemingly not. But how on earth is that possible when twins are clones of one another? As identical twins are genetic carbon copies of each other, their brains, in simple terms, are wired up the same way. This means that if one were to contract a disease, the other would catch it soon after, as their immune systems are identical. The word schizophrenia holds many stereotypes to its name, but the question people want answered is it genetic? And to some extent, it is. But as children grow up and their brains develop, the fine line that links schizophrenia to identical twins whose genomes are the same seems to disappear. The correlation between the two is even below 50%, and this in itself is a clear indication that schizophrenia is not wholly a genetic disease. But the side of it that is genetic, well, that's where the fun starts. Both siblings can inherit genes whose expressions are susceptible to change as they both grow up. The more rare genes a person has, the more likely it is for manifestation to occur. It's like saying the more designer jewelry you have on show, the more likely you are to be mugged. Genes can change under the influence of their surroundings, which can vary from substance abuse to who your friends are, even to simply moving house. But why does this happen? Surely there's some funny business going on up there which we can't see, I hear you shout. And you'd be absolutely right. The way it is able to develop within one twin and not the other is due to chemical imbalances in the brain. These imbalances can be caused by genes changing rapidly, therefore altering the genome of the affected person. The reason only one may have the disorder is down to whether the expressions of the gene change at all. If there's no change in the gene itself, then it's unlikely for the individual to develop schizophrenia in the first place. Despite having said all this, there is unfortunately no cure or scientific way to tell whether an individual has schizophrenia or not. People cannot self-diagnose with the illness as the hallucinations and delusions they're experiencing, they believe to be real. So, next time you're home alone and you think you hear someone calling your name, spare a thought for Ronnie. Might be him trying to tell you something. Thank you for listening.
Okay, the whole Ronnie thing was creepy, but I liked it. It's a really good, I liked this talk, it was really nice, very weird topic. Why did you pick this topic? I'm really intrigued why you picked this.
Well, basically, I've kind of, ever since I've been quite young, I've really been interested in how the brain works. So, and mental illnesses especially, kind of like schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, depression, and how they all manifest themselves within the brain. So I thought I might as well do something I'm really passionate about, and this is something that I am really, really interested in and passionate about, so that's basically why I chose it.
Do they use twin studies for other types of mental illness?
Yes, they do. They do it for quite a lot, actually, to see how it does develop. That's actually a really, really large part of how scientists find out how the illnesses develop inside a brain. So they test it against one twin and the other, and if one has it, like my talk then, and the other one doesn't, then it kind of begs the question, why? So, and then they find that out through that.
I have quite a basic question. What is schizophrenia?
Schizophrenia is basically, it's obviously a mental illness, and it affects the two frontal lobes of the brain, and it's basically something which it causes hallucinations and delusions, and you might think that something's constantly following you, or actually I saw quite an interesting article the other day about this girl who has schizophrenia, and her psychiatrist asked her to draw a picture of what she thought was always following her, and it was basically a picture of this skeletal man. So it is a really, really, if you look into it a lot, it's quite a sad illness that it affects how people think and how they're able to interact with other people, and it really, really does affect the individual and family members.
I love the nature-nurture debate on anything that's, you know, a psychological issue. And you talked a lot about the genetics.
Yeah.
In your research, what have you found out about the environmental factors that could trigger schizophrenia?
Well, it's actually a massive combination of the two which can cause it, as the genes change according to things around you, so obviously your upbringing. And there was actually a really, really interesting study that I found where two twins had been separated at birth, and one had grown up in a complete different environment to the other twin, and the one who grew up in the environment which was less kind of developed than the other one actually developed a mental illness. So it is highly influenced by how your parents bring you up, and who your friends are, and what you do, whether you take drugs or alcohol or, you know, smoke. It's really down to that.
Okay, have to leave it there. Praise, craze, and applause, please, for Amy James.